almost. Oh. Okay. Nope, I feel like laughing. This is tired. It's the fatigue laugh. Okay. All right. Hi, I'm Dr. Isom, and I am with co-host
Tammy Hernandez.
And this is NeuroReal. So tonight we are going to talk about the competence illusion, like why capability hides disability. So in people, essentially we're talking about autistic level 1 individuals like myself and Tammy, my daughter, my former husband, how in those of us who, have come to learn that we have autism, right? ADHD, highly gifted, all the things, neurodivergence is what I like to say. How our capability basically presents to society as we're capable across the board. Therefore, the things that we have in silence, I want to say suffer in silence, but the things that go on cognitively for us or emotionally for us that people can't see visibly, then makes it as if it's not there, but yet we're dealing with them in some way. So essentially what we're saying is, the assumption is if you're a level 1 autistic person, if you're performing well, then, it's easy for people to try to be dismissive of the diagnosis you have. However, we're going to talk about essentially how knowing the diagnosis has helped me in certain ways, whether people want to believe it or not. It has definitely helped me be able to, one, understand and not keep repeating the same insanity. So we were talking earlier about how, for me, I get dysregulated with certain things. Like now I can say like that's what's happening. Before it was just like this thing would happen and I would respond a certain way. And every time this thing would happen, I kept trying to tell myself to respond differently, or I keep trying to train myself to respond differently. But every time a certain thing happens, I'm still responding the same way and I don't like it. It doesn't feel good to me. And so now I can say, before I even have to go down that particular pathway of whatever it is, if I know that for decades I've always become dysregulated when X happens, I now have the language for why it happens versus, trying to, twist myself into a pretzel or to something that I'm not in order to behave differently when the biology for that isn't there. And so now I just have a different way of getting into that space by saying, okay, this is going to dysregulate me, or I'll tell the person like, I'm going to become dysregulated because of this. Yeah. So now we all know versus like, it's going to happen anyway if you push. And so let's not push me to dysregulation because I don't like it and it's not going to end up good for you.
Right. And what might that dysregulation look like for you?
I can't say that certain things have become better, but like for a multitude of reasons, right? Like lots of therapy, like decades of therapy, ExoMind, energy work. Like there are reasons like I've been able to move myself towards the middle, but let's just take like some of the irritability, right? That again, I used to say was like a part of my ADHD. I was out shopping with my daughter just this weekend. Lines, right? Because right now I have a higher cognitive load right now because a lot of things are going on. We're in this line and I really want to lose it. Like I really want to lose it. I'm telling her, I'm like, hey, because I know this is triggering for me right now because my cognitive load is pretty heavy. And maybe if my cognitive load wasn't so heavy, I would be able to deal with this line. I don't like lines in general, but we're in the store. She wants these sweatshirts, and I'm just like, this line is too long. I am about to lose it. Right. And she was like, but mommy, but it's just, I'm gonna walk away because I literally can't stand it. I'm still gonna be in my mind. I'm like, I'm still gonna be in the store for the same amount of time. Yet I cannot stand in this line without losing it. So I was like, I'm gonna just walk away. And then, the mother part of me kicked in. It's like, okay, I don't want to walk off, even though she's, 12 years old. I'm like, I don't want to walk off and leave my child sandwiched between weird, like, not saying weird, but sandwiched between strangers. But so in that case, I brought myself back, but I felt very irritable, very like I just had she not been with me in that moment, and for whatever reason I wanted the sweatshirts, I would have, and I told her, I was like, if it wasn't you, and this wasn't your birthday weekend, I would just literally just throw these over the banister and walk out.
Had you done that in the past?
Oh, absolutely.
And not known why you hated lines?
No. I just felt like I was impatient. Like I've marked it up to I'm impatient, right? And we were just talking about how I've always tried to fix myself. Like, I don't need other people to tell me, like, why can't you why can't I adjust myself all the time as I walk past things that I just don't pick up? Like, why can't you just? And I'm like, because it makes me feel so icky and so paralyzed. It's like it's a cognitive weight. I'm like, I see it on the floor. I don't feel like picking it up. It's not gonna kill me to pick it up, but why can't I just? I do this all the time. Why can't I just? That's my thing. Like it's a heavier cognitive load for me, which is again like we go into this is why for me it's worth having a housekeeper. Like I have had a housekeeper for a very long time, and again I used to believe it was like a luxury and that it was something that I couldn't afford. Only rich people had that. Like I had a housekeeper in, was I in residency? I can't remember if it was residency or after residency. It was right after residency. I ended up getting a housekeeper, so I'm making a little bit more as a first year, um, right out of med school, and so I felt like, okay, well now I'm a doctor now. I'm actually like getting more of like a baby doctor salary, but I'm getting a baby doctor salary, and like now I feel like I can afford it. And then when I found out how much it cost me to get a housekeeper to come to my apartment every week, I was like, I could have been did this. Like they make it seem like in my brain, having a housekeeper was like this expensive thing that I couldn't afford. And I was like, I absolutely could have afforded one much sooner, but I struggled all that time. Mm-hmm. Not really. The reason why I ended up having a housekeeper is because I had a boyfriend at the time who I didn't realize how much he did until we were no longer together, and I was like, oh my goodness, things aren't getting done. Yeah, laundry's not being put away, towels stuff. I'm like, I gotta do this stuff. That is when reality kicked in, and I was like, that's when I went on the hunt for a house. That's how that happened. But before I didn't really need it because I had, I made some type of accommodations. Like, it was all about studying. I wasn't really living real life at the time. And, still living like a student for a long time. So it wasn't as much of a big deal. And then when I wasn't living like a student, I'm like, okay, I get to be a whole adult now. I was like, oh, I need help. And that's when, that kicked in for me. So, that was the beginning of my adult accommodations, but I still didn't know why.
Yeah.
Right. I just felt like I needed to lighten the load. And the way that I explained it to myself back then was like, why would I spend my time cleaning, to that extent when I could be doing other things? So it wasn't, I justified it as it not being a good use of my time. It's better for me to pay somebody to do that so that I can actually use my skills and talents in a place where it actually may make me money.
Yeah.
That's how I used to justify it. But, even listening to people talk about having to do laundry, like I do laundry, I do my laundry, but put it away, fold the sheet, like it's visceral for me. And so I find ways to afford it. The same thing, like then I realized, okay, I have a housekeeper. Then the next thing that came in was the personal organizer. I didn't know these people even existed. And I just needed a little, like, I could go and do somebody else's house. I would love to go and help someone else organize their house. Oh, I get it done. My own space, paralyzing. Like, I wouldn't know where to start. And so I started having person organizers come in and help me get my life together. And then I would unravel it. And then I realized I needed to have them come back in and do it. And then it wasn't until maybe a few years ago, like with my ADHD coaching, that, my coaches basically said, like, you actually need this person to come in every month. Like, yes, it's great. I thought I did great. I'm like, hey, I have this person. We're going to go through every single room, get every single room organized, like not just the kitchen. Finally got out of all of our boxes, because, we have been a military family. So we have been moving around a lot. And so we were always, every house we've been to, there was always something left in boxes. Like we had never completely unpacked. So once we decided we were staying in Vegas, I was like, okay, now I'm going to bring this organizer back and we're going to get out of all the boxes. We're going to go through every room, not just the kitchen, not just like, a couple rooms. Did the whole house, every room, out of boxes. I know where everything is. It feels great. You just ask me, I could tell you like where the tape is, and awesome feeling. A couple months down the line, you bring other things into the house and it doesn't feel the same now. I'm not putting things back.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I'm undoing all that had been done. And it wasn't until a few years ago, actually 3 years ago, where like my ADHD coach was like, you may want to consider having them come back once a month so that way you keep up with the unraveling. Right. And I had to accept that that's what's going to happen. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But I had to accept that happens. And like, I can keep trying to fight against it. And it doesn't stop me from saying, okay, what other tools can I bring in to help me be better at doing this? Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is my brain at times, depending on what the cognitive load that I'm carrying, is not going to want to do that. Mm-hmm. And I can't make it.
Yeah.
Right. But nobody sees that because no one, like, unless you're like in my house, like, but you don't see the turmoil that's going through my head if I have to like consider doing that.
So if people meet you, they're not going to see all that. They're not going to understand all that, and it sounds like, yeah, you had thought a lot of that was ADHD and some of that, a lot of it is, right? It's hard to stay organized, but when you have autism and the executive dysfunction of executive functions, right? It is hard and nobody sees that, but we're still expected to do all the things, right? And be able to, just because we can be organized at work doesn't mean that at home where it's you that relies on you and not all these other people, it's harder to take care of yourself and do those things for yourself and to stay organized because it gets overwhelming after a while. And if you consistently put yourself on that back burner, right, you're doing it in all the other places people can see you, then it is harder, right? And for me, I just listening to you talk, I realized that when I had the kids and I don't know how that makes sense, but when I had the kids and when I had other people I was taking care of in the home, it's a lot easier to stay organized and it takes a lot of control, right, to be able to do all those things. But when it comes to living on my own and not having anybody to take some of that load off, I find myself these days more overwhelmed, I just wish once I could not have to think about that thing that needs to get done and be able to do it, right? Just even unpacking the boxes this time around, which is normally pretty, that's been my system, do it very quickly. I still haven't unpacked them all. And I'm just moving crates from one room to the garage and back. And, and it's a lot of work, but it's a lot. It's draining. But I'm also running the business and I'm doing all these things of keeping all this stuff organized. And when it comes to me, my spoons are gone, just doing those things. By the time it comes to my stuff, I'm just recuperating at this point. I've spent all my spoons, helping where I need to help. And then I'm at home going, but it's something, cognitively that is just a challenge. And I find that especially being a people pleaser in the past, so many, yes, 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 I'll do that, and to where it is really killing me to do that thing. I'm doing it because I want to make others happy. And just because I kind of have corrected that people pleasing doesn't mean that that fixed all of my issues, right? I'm still having that dysregulation internally and behind closed doors and things like that aren't always easy for others to understand, because people do see you as, oh, you have it all together and you're successful and you have this and you have that. And you're just like, you have no idea what it's really like to be, autistic in life. And I think one of the things we wanted to talk about was how in the past we didn't give ourselves really that forgiveness, or like you had stated that people see that as an excuse sometimes, and you're like, nope, that's okay, because I recognize I'm autistic and this is one of those things. Being a people pleaser, I find that that's actually easier for me now to put it in the context, but there will still be people that are, like you said, will see that as an excuse. And it's like, no, that's just me letting myself off the hook, that I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be capable 24/7 in everybody's eyes. And I'm just accepting that, yeah, it's okay, to be dysregulated. It's okay to need downtime. It's okay to tell people no. And if that's no, I'm not giving you the time right now. I literally just need to sit and quietly, and or step out of this line because I am dysregulated and this is making it harder. That's something that it's a challenge to do when people see you as a certain way.
Oh yeah, you you get sometimes, and I call it like cognitive load, right? Those invisible cognitive loads. So it's tax season. So even though like I'm not currently doing my taxes, there are things that I still need to do and gather for taxes. Like that's a cognitive weight for me.
Yep.
Like every little piece is a cognitive weight. And so if one were to start adding up all of the things and the responsibilities, like those are the things that start to lower my threshold. And so, now I know, right? I've set days, like my days for doing like, working on the business versus working in the business.
Right.
So I set that time aside to try to get some of those things done that are more of a cognitive load, so that during the rest of the week, right? That's the trick for me, that I can lessen that load and not think about it, because I know I've dedicated a day to actually deal with it. It'll may pop up, but it doesn't weigh me down as much now because I've dedicated a day to say, okay, this is the day that I'm going to deal with the things that I don't really like to do. And I've given myself the whole day, like not an hour or two. Like I've had to give myself the whole entire day, because that's how heavy and intense it is for my brain. And so if I felt like I was under the gun, I just added pressure to something that I don't even want to do.
Yeah.
So no, I need to allow myself a significant amount of time so that I can actually do some of it. It may not, I'm not going to use the whole day, but if I don't give myself the whole day, none of it gets done. And then it just creates a heavier weight for me. So all of those things matter. And what I've now learned is that I can now appreciate how, when I am having a lower threshold, because I may have a lot of things weighing on me, now that I know this, if someone was to ask me something fairly simple to do, and I say no, where I may have easily been able to say yes, or you ask me a question and I am currently thinking, I'm either currently doing something else and you want me to try to switch gears, that's gonna be a bad situation, right? It's but I may blurt out, I may get annoyed, I may say something not so kind in a way, but at the same time, I'll stop and I'll say, I am very dysregulated right now, or I am like, I have a heavy cognitive load, or my threshold is really low. Like I have words to explain to the person that I may have, not been as gentle with. Right. And it's not even been unkind. I'm just very direct when I'm under the pressure of the gun, or I feel like a heavyweight. I'm just very direct. There's no niceties. There's no good mornings. There's just,
Yeah.
Give it to you because you have taken me away from whatever I was thinking about or whatever I was doing. And I'm not going to be able to shift that easily, even though you think I could, or you just said good morning or whatever you may have said. I was otherwise occupied and I can't answer that question for you.
Right. So I had one of those instances last week, not this past Friday, but the Friday before during group. So I do the adult group very late in the evening. Sometimes they can, they're supposed to be an hour, but they can go 2 to 3 hours, right? And I was in the middle of explaining something, and my mind is in one direction, and I'm kind of getting to, I think, the middle or towards the end of explaining, and a question came in, and it like mid train, right? And so it had been a very long day, and then I should have just said, let's get into that next time, but it had to do with what I was talking about, but it took off a whole other end. And I was actually explaining self-harm and the podcast that we had done, the episode, um and then it went into this other direction. And I tell you, I went home and I was just like, okay, I know none of that was what I was trying to say. And then I had to think about everybody that was in there. Did the point come across? Did, hopefully this didn't, go like being misinterpreted. And then it's the whole weekend. It's all of my night trying to sleep. And I'm, because I'm going through all these things. And then come Monday, I got to start like each person that was in there, making sure they understood that I wasn't, saying this or saying that or whatnot. And it's exhausting to do that, but it was, and I had to explain to him, look, that is just my autistic brain. I was tired, towards the end of the day, I was winding it down. And then this question sent us into almost an entire other hour of now I'm going to have to push my brain further. And I was tripping on my words, and I just couldn't really, answer it. And what I had said had like brought another person in because they misinterpreted it. And so it was just, it was a lot for me mentally to really try to make sure that I, had covered it all. And it was funny because when I had talked to them, they're like, no. I was like, okay, so that was just me, going back in and because of my responsibility, making sure, right? But that will take, it cuts into my sleep. It's the first thing I think of in the morning, and then I'm mental processing this through. That cognitive load on top of my already there on my only days off, that, it gets to be a lot. And that happens more often than not, where someone has asked one extra thing and I'm like, I thought I was done for
this
today.
is kind of like what I was talking about. So like when things are going to derail you or dysregulate you, like figuring out ways to now get ahead of that so that you don't end up losing sleep and not doing like and feeling a certain way. So it's kind of like me saying, before I didn't know, right? Before I just didn't know. I was like, that's just how I am. Right? Yeah. That's just how I am. Chalk it up to that. And I would behave in a certain way, and again, over and over and over and over again. And so, but now, because I know, right? Even in like, I'm not going to leave the line, or I'm like, I did. Well, I took a few steps away and then I came back because the mother in me was like, I can't leave my child in between people she don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Now that I know, or again, like I can be in a conversation with someone, and if, someone else like asks me something to derail me in a way that I feel like it's going to dysregulate me, I may be very direct, but then, nope, I don't make excuses. I'm just very direct because some people, it depends on who the person is, where I may stop and give them an explanation, like, before they keep going, so that we don't go, like, I may be very direct to the, because I just need to stop it. It's kind of like swatting a kid's hand away from something dangerous. Like, I usually just give you something really direct. That gives me enough time to say, okay, I can't go into this right now because it's going to dysregulate me and this is going to go off the rail.
Right.
So let's not go off the rail.
Right.
Let's do it a different way.
Yeah.
I can say that now. Before, I didn't even have the words to say it. We just would have got derailed and it would have not ended up as well.
Yeah. And I think part of me, you know, there's this part that when I was in school for counseling, I had one professor that said, everything you say is an intervention. Ooh, that weighed on me heavy. Like, oh my gosh, okay, everything that's going to come out of my mouth is an intervention. And so really be careful. But I've always been that way. You know, I really will really process through everything and think about what's going to come out of my mouth before, you know, I get sad. So like that was one thing where I struggled, was telling the person who had chimed in, like, that is not what I'm referring to. And I had to kind of shut that person down just so that it didn't go in another thing while I was trying to answer. But just the answer alone, it wasn't until I realized later, it did derail me because I was winding down. My brain was on one thing and I couldn't catch it quick enough to be able to shut that down and say. So it's something that like I have to keep, you know, working on. Because it's just not, it's not that easy for me as a people pleaser to just go, yeah, nope, done. Right. And having, like, realizing what toll that has taken over the years on that shutting down ability, and knowing when I'm tired or when it is, you know, 10 o'clock in the evening and I've been at it since 7, 8 in the morning, it is, you know, like, it's a learning to just go, yeah, today it's not happening. Right. It just all depends on how much stuff was going on in that day that dysregulated me along the way. I may enter into this going, oh yeah, it's great. And it was great until all the other stuff that I used my spoons on at that moment hits me. And that's where it gets harder. Right. But for a people pleaser, it is a hard habit to break, to be able to go, yep, nope, done.
But I used to be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Like
but
that was
you
my,
stopped it much earlier
started
on
very
than I
early.
did. Yeah, I didn't start working on that until I was into my 40s. And it took me a good 8 years to get to a point where I can go, nope, absolutely not. Still trip up from time to time, right? But yeah, it took some time.
This
and
is
then
a 30-year process and it still isn't perfect. Like I remember my husband told me, you know, I needed to put down some responsibilities because I, you know, I'm in an organization and I love the organization. For me and my child, it's amazing. And so, you know, I'm doing the work, I'm being active, I'm being the parent, trying to like do all the things, be involved, showing up all the time, you know, being on the exec board, being like on these committees, doing the work. But at the same time, like I was, you know, maybe not as available because I was doing that. And so he was like, you know what? You're done. That was super hard for me to not be like doing the extra stuff. This is before the business. I'm like, I just go to work. Like I can like, you know, we're all busy moms. We all have busy lives. Like I can do that and do this too. Like, but that was that was another lesson for me of like putting something down that I normally would not have done because I want to show up and be present and be, you know, do this thing that I've committed to, right? I was like, I've committed to this. Let me do it. He's like, no, you're just going to be a mom. You're going to do your committee stuff, you know, do what you have to do, show up for the events, but like, no, none of this extra stuff. That was another level in this 30 plus year process of me, like learning how to set boundaries or say no, or having time for self, or, you know, like now it's not just me, now it's me and a family and I have to give my time to them in a different way. So he did help me in that sense. And so, yeah, I did start early in saying no. I think I told you, it was like, I watched the Oprah episode and it was about saying no without giving like an excuse. And, you know, I remember the first time I did it, right? I had to close my eyes and it's just like, no. And then in the back of my head, it's like, and don't give an excuse. You don't have to give a reason. Like it's your friend asking you to do something, you can just say no. Right. If they're your friend, like they tell you no all the time and things just go on like this, it should be no big deal. So yeah, I had lots of practice, but it doesn't mean that it's perfect in any way. You'll still tend to overcommit
Mhm.
when you shouldn't. Um, like work, obviously now is a perfect example of that. There's a lot more overcommitting in that situation, but along the way, what you're supposed to be learning is how do I reduce my load so that I make space for me? Because what you don't want to do is burnout,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Again, and for me on the doctor side of that, like that is a physiological issue. I'm pretty sure. Like if and again, that's why I wear a CGM, right? Not all the time, but I like to wear it from time to time. And you know, I haven't eaten all day. That's the honest truth. Today is one of those days I have not eaten all day. I'm pretty sure if I look at my blood sugars at some point in the day, it probably spiked, right? So that is nothing but
Mhm.
like cortisol, like that is stress, that is like my body and the fact that I haven't eaten either, that it needs energy. But it allows me to look at like how things affect me in a biological sense. And, if I don't like how that's looking and how that can affect me, my vessels, my heart, like all the things, then I need to find ways to lessen the load from myself, like lessen my
Right.
cognitive load. And so, it's gonna be a perpetual thing. It's not like, oh, I'm good at saying no. I'm always gonna be able to say no. Like I say yes when I'm should be saying no, and then kick
Yeah.
myself. But that's everybody, I think, and we all learn how to, you know, get to a better place, and it gets better. It gets better and better. I definitely like where I am now,
Mhm.
with the understanding that I have, again, not to use it as an excuse, right? But I'm not having to beat myself up anymore. I still may not like some of my behaviors, right? I don't like that I just can't pick that sock up on my way. Like, because my excuse, like, it's my daughter's sock. She could put that in a thing. Like, or my dog tears something up. Like, I don't want to pick up after her either right now. Like, it's too much. But it's literally just pick it up and put it in the trash can. And for somebody who doesn't have this neurodivergence issue, like they cannot understand why I just can't.
Yeah. And I think that is, yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing, and that's all I can say. Today I actually ate, but I didn't take my ADHD meds, so it's been a day, right? And so we forget things sometimes. But yeah, I think it is always going to be a process. It is always about, now the way I see it with autism, and even, learning the autism and ADHD, I kind of learned that all at the same time for myself. I didn't know that over time. I just made this work. And, as a single mom, two kids, like I had this go, 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 and I worked, and so I just did all the time. And the older I get, the harder it is to just do, right? Because you get tired, and it is exhausting. And then I do have to make sure, now that I am running this business, to take that time for self-care. But I learned that going into mental health, and that was right around, again, in my 40s. And it was a game changer for me when I realized, oh, I've been so hypocritical and promoting self care and everybody else, and I
Mhm.
wasn't taking care of me, until I realized I can't help people with mental health issues if I am spent and worn out and tired and just not taking care of myself emotionally, mentally. And so I had to learn how to do that. But that is still, again, a lifetime of undoing habits. And that's kind of what I tell my clients. Like, it gives us that ability to let ourselves off the hook from beating ourselves up,
Yep.
because as an autistic person, we do that from very small childhood. It's just almost ingrained in us as this, self-doubt, and beating ourselves up if we don't push more and more and more, and we're just killing ourselves trying to do it,
Like,
right?
again, meeting societal norms, being, parents' expectations or teachers' expectations, um, not knowing that, autism was an issue for me. Like ADHD I had already known. And so I was kind of like dealing with that. But like when you add in the low level autism that shows up and how it shows up in my life, I'm like, okay, that is another way for me to you know, it actually lifts the load for me and it allows me to put
Mhm.
energy in other places because now I'm not also beating myself up
Yeah.
on for something. It doesn't mean that I stop trying to achieve a better way of doing a thing. It just means like, okay, you don't have to actually beat yourself up because your brain just doesn't operate that way.
Right.
Right? It's not a you thing. It's not because you want to do better,
Right.
but you wanting to do better and then not happening will spin you into a spiral. It actually like, creates more of a cognitive load and
Mhm.
dysregulation for you. So
Yeah.
now that I can like get that dysregulation, that additional, ankle biter type of dysregulation off of me, it does free me up in other
Right.
areas. And so I like where I am now with an understanding, with the ability to say, understand like, this is what dysregulation feels like, and I don't like it. How do I not get to this point? What do I need to do? Do I need to be more organized? It does make more organization help me to not be so spent emotionally
Mhm.
that you don't cause me to, erupt because you want to shift what I'm currently doing,
Yeah.
right? Or I get a phone call about something that to me could have been handled differently or didn't
Mhm.
require me, right? Um, and depending on where I am that day, will kind of dictate how I respond in
Right.
the moment.
Yeah.
But then I can say, I don't carry the guilt now, right? It was going to happen whether I have autism,
Yep.
know I have autism or not. But now I don't carry that ankle bite of guilt.
Yep.
So it doesn't carry the same cognitive, load that it did before. Like I was already to a point of dysregulation. I get dysregulated. I respond in a way that direct, not mean. It's hard for me to be mean, but I'm very direct.
Mhm.
Um, but then I can drop it. Like I don't
Yeah.
feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I know why I responded that way. And so I can move on and try to get back to doing what I was doing without being dysregulated. And I think it's about people understanding that they are neurodivergent and that it's okay to be dysregulated as long as you're not really trying to use it as an excuse, as long as you use it as an understanding so that it
Mhm.
doesn't continue to perpetually cause you more harm because you are trying to fix it in a way that doesn't work for how your brain works.
Right.
And so everybody's doing that is going to be different. Um, Again, like I said, it's not perfect, but people have to allow themselves grace. That's why understanding that what it is, level one autism is a real thing. Level one autistic people are also people who are committing self harm,
Mhm.
right? So it's not a light thing just because you can't see it,
Right.
right? It's not a thing of that you get to dismiss
Mhm.
because you don't see it. Like people who outwardly have things and have outwardly achieved are still dealing with emotional issues that we can't medicate away. And so, because we can't medicate these things away, knowing and understanding what it is what's going to allow these people to actually get real help.
Right.
But if we just put it on them as why can't you and you should,
Mhm.
we end up with bad outcomes.
Yeah. And I do think it takes understanding of the people that you surround yourself with as well, right? To be able to not only help lessen some of that emotional turmoil that happens. We have a responsibility to self, but I'll give you an example. So I have a client who, late diagnosis for them, and then diagnosis for their teenage daughter, right? And so had an instance where they're just spent, and when the teenage daughter asked for something, this person kind of came unglued to like,
Mhm.
I just can't da 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 da, and was like, okay, I'm walking away. And when they came back to apologize and take accountability, it was great that the daughter said, I get it. You seem like you're really dysregulated, like you're under some pressure with something. So I totally get it. And the mom was like, absolutely not like this. And the daughter's like, I get it. How many times have you done that for me? Understanding that I'm just emotionally
Right.
dysregulated right now because I'm dealing with something. And mom was like, oh, I was so proud of her, but it really took away all that guilt that I was about to be feeling and like, oh my gosh, how could I? I don't want to be this way. And, come back and they're just like, no, we get it. Like, you do it for me, I do it for you. I see it, and it's okay. And if our families like that, people that we surround ourselves can understand what we're telling them and not take the societal, expectation or this, well, don't make that an excuse, or you should be able to because, and it's like, okay, I get it, right? But you're not walking in my shoes. You're not seeing what's going on internally. That same societal pressure is how we create people pleasers, how we start just doing everything for everybody because we don't know how else to handle that, right? That pressure, instead of just being taught saying no is okay and not today, and I'm feeling dysregulated so I can't, or I'm a little bit tired, or my spoons are gone, or whatever. We should be teaching that earlier on. And I think that's why you and I want to do these, even the podcast and these conversations, because this is where we need to push that needle in society to say, stop putting all the pressure that makes someone who is autistic with ADHD feel like we're supposed to be able to do these things and we're supposed to conform. We're supposed to do all of this stuff and do it really well because that's what's expected. It doesn't always work that way.
It doesn't, but I also, I'll have conversations, with people in the sense of, that's why I think it's important to understand that and, start working again with the therapist on a regular basis. Like I said, I have off and on therapy for 20 years, 30 years. Yeah, 20, at least 25 years, right? Off and on for me. Like, so, and before that, it was just me journaling and, getting into my feelings and trying to understand myself. There's some Oprah and some Cosby Show in there too, right? Like things that help socialize me to try to, try to be a better, person. But for the person, society is going to be society. Like society is not, you know, built for people with autism per se, which is why you get the masking and the people pleasing and especially for level ones, trying to find ways to, fit into society and in mask. And I think we do that pretty well. But when you understand it, you can now then save space for self and you don't burn out because again, because we try to fit in, because we mask, we're the ones that are going to have a higher potential of burning out and having actual, more detrimental outcomes in doing that. And so when you understand, I think it lessens the detrimental outcomes. When you understand as a person who has the autism, it gives you the power to say, no,
Yeah.
I get not. And then again, I think it in time, you'll get to the point where it truly doesn't affect you, right? You don't feel guilty because you can't. And I'm saying can't. But I said this today to someone, it's not a thing that you can't, because I don't like hearing when you say you can't. It's that if you do, it's going to cost you more. It's not that you can't do a thing, because you absolutely level ones can do anything. It's not something you can't. It's not a thing of can't.
Right.
But it's if you do, it's going to cost you. So what you're doing is you're choosing you, and that's never a bad thing.
Right.
Right. It's okay to choose you and say, it's not a thing. It's not that I can't. I just say I'm not. And I'm okay with that. I'm not because I can't, but because I'm choosing me.
Right. Yeah.
But that's not an overnight thing.
No. And I think for me, it is this challenge of remaining unmasked all the time, 24/7. And I am, I do find that's what I was talking about that Friday night was really how I find myself tripping up more, but because I want to be authentic, my authentic self. And I don't want the expectation, I don't want myself to put that expectation on me, right? To have to mask, to have to be this thing that I've always been known for, right? And I was explaining how in our first podcast, because we had the cameras and it's new and I'd not done a podcast, every word that came out of my mouth, I mean, my brain was going so fast, my mouth could not keep up. It just sounded like, ugh. But, I was explaining, I'm so grateful that you and I have talked so much that you were able to understand what I was saying and put it into more viable context than what I was, because of my own nerves and because of, just doing this now, not being inauthentic. Right. And after that, I remember seeing it going, oh God, okay. And then I had to tell myself, nope, it's NeuroReal, and this is
That's what you
NeuroReal,
get.
and this is unmasked. And I am not always going to have the right word, or because my brain will start going very quickly. And then I've got to quickly, try to reel that in to make sense of it. And that's it. That's very real. That's very authentic. And it has to be okay. And so I'm able to let myself off the hook a little more. But I use those stories, like in group and in therapy, to help people understand it's okay. It's okay to trip over things. It's okay that when you are tired, or just, your cognitive load is high, the stress levels are higher, to not have to get it all right all the time. It's not going to happen consistently. It's just, we're going to have struggles, and we have to be okay with that, and we have to be okay with taking care of ourselves. And at this point, I don't really care what anybody thinks about that. Before I did, I was always like, and I couldn't sit down for a second without thinking in my mind, somebody's going to think I'm lazy. I'm like, nobody is home but me. But if I am not getting up doing this, there's this little voice going, they're going to think you're lazy. And I remember thinking, wait, everybody else sits down on their day off. Why is it that I can't sit down for 2 seconds on my day off or on my time off? Why do I have to feel go, 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 go? I got to go, 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 go. Right. And now I learned, yep, nope, I'm going to sit down, and anybody wants something? Not today. I'm sorry, but I need to decompress. I need to, because I can't be just this work life's, constant work and rinse, repeat always.
Oh
It's
no,
gotta
I've learned
be being able to
the
do
way that
some
I
stuff.
set my schedule up now works for me.
Yeah.
Right. It works for me. Like Mondays are a little bit harder, like coming off the weekend and doing Monday. But now I know I don't do Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday is not a work in the business day.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've come off the weekend, and that's, I try to commit that to my family. And then, Monday is usually going to be a heavy day. So if I went from Monday to another heavy day, or even a semi-heavy day Tuesday.
You got my message, right? I was sick on Saturday. I was like messaging you. Did I miss that thing? Oh my God, I missed that thing. I was sick. And then I was like, oh, no, it's next weekend. Okay. But that's how my brain works. Like, oh my God, you had a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at my calendar, like, why is it not on my calendar? Right. Because I'm telling myself, no, I swear it was. And I'm like, maybe look on next weekend's calendar and see, okay, never mind.
But those things happen. And, whether you are, or if you don't know that you are, if you're having like a feeling that you get irritable or dysregulated to sense, or you're responding in ways that just don't match up to people's expectation, it may be worth getting an evaluation. Because knowing, for me, it's not about having an excuse. It's about being able to really show up in a way that protects self. And actually, now I actually can enjoy life a lot better, because I can set boundaries, because I have an understanding. And doesn't make anything perfect. It doesn't mean that I still don't have slip ups. Again, autism isn't one of those things that you can just medicate. Like, I can definitely help some of my ADHD things with, medications. But this is a lifelong of like learning, because every situation is going to be different, and life at different stages require different things. And so learning how to, as you would say, take care of self, or self-care, what that means for you is going to be different for everybody. There are some people who will find pleasure in folding clothes and putting them away. I am not one of them.
I just hang mine up. I don't even fold.
Correct.
I cannot fold. I can fold. I don't want to fold. it irritates me. And so everything goes straight from dryer to hanger.
When I
have figured that out.
No, that
I'm
is,
doing
that
it,
was
yeah.
one of my things before. So I got hangers, and that's, but then it became sheets. Yeah, sheets are a problem. And then I just didn't, I didn't get on YouTube and learn how to do that. I just didn't. Like, my brain was like, I could do this, but I can't. And if I can find something to just take that away from me, right? I can pick up after myself, a little bit, but that once a week, having someone to come in and just, let my brain just feel the calmness when I walk in the door, it's worth it. And I get to reset, and I get to do that again and again and again. The same thing for me about having a personal organizer. You think it's expensive, but it's the cognitive weight that it lifts is so worth it. And oftentimes we just have to realize that we invest in other things, we invest in other people's things, foods and drinks and beverages and cables and all the things. But if we look at things differently and learn to use that same amount of money and or energy in providing things that we really need that are going to help us, you know, feel better and show up better for those that we care about, show up better for ourselves, it's worth it. So I ask people to just to kind of consider, where are you spending where you feel like you can't afford certain accommodations that may allow you to show up better for yourself and not burn out.
Yeah, so I guess you can kind of take a look at the quality of life, right? And so sometimes people will think, okay, quality of life is I have all of this and I have these things and da da da. Da. But the reality is, when you're taking care of yourself, that's a quality of life. That's a giving you ability to thrive, right? And to enjoy life some, and to take, if you can take one of those things off your plate by giving yourself an accommodation or self care, and put that energy into something more enjoyable for yourself, why wouldn't you do that? Right. And that's where it becomes
It's just
difficult.
taking the weight off. Like that
Mhm.
weight it's unsettling, it's uncomfortable, right? It's really more about having a peace. I don't have to necessarily do anything else. It's not there.
Yeah.
It is not there. It is not taking up the space. So for me, it's just like when I decided to invest in a trainer,
Yeah.
right? I was single. I was like, this is my health is important. I need a trainer. I can't do this. I don't want to do this by myself. It's easier for me. And people are like, well, why? I'm like, the trainer really wasn't that expensive. Like I could afford to do it. So why wouldn't I make that investment in self? It allowed me to build a better body, get more muscle mass. I learned some things, and now I do it differently. But I still realize that for me personally, for me to actually have consistent workouts, I need a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Right? Or I need another person.
I'm laughing. I gotta tell you this.
Why?
Because I'm thinking of self-care, and I'm thinking, okay, here's a thing going on around my house with my dogs. Okay. Oh, Newfoundlands love to push their food out of the dish onto the ground. And so I'm like, I'm gonna clean this floor up. And oh, how nice I am, I'm cleaning the dog's pen. Clean it all nice and neat. No sooner than I turn around and I hear because to my male, he likes it better when he can push his food on the floor.
No.
So self-care can be different for anybody.
Absolutely.
We don't let other people tell you what you need or don't need, right? I'm like, I'll just give them, oh, people are going to think their pen is dirty, or they're, these poor dogs. And I go clean it. And then 2 seconds later, I'm just like, why do I try?
No, you
just keep my floor clean and let them deal with theirs. That's why I was laughing, because that's what came to mind when you were talking about self-care. Just like,
yeah, it's totally different for everybody, right? Whereas to like some people may need food service, right? They may need, a personal chef, or they may need these food delivery places because again, cooking is just overwhelming for them.
Shopping is overwhelming.
For me, cooking it can be very peaceful, right? I don't mind, but at the same time, if I had to cook every day, right, I found ways to be able to do that very quickly, right? Air fryer, like you will find ways to manage. And so basically that's what we're saying is like, find ways to manage things that cause you dysregulation. It doesn't necessarily have to be, hiring out for or something. It
Yeah.
just may be learning how to do it in ways that make sense for you. Just kind of how like I've learned how to set my schedule in a way that
Mhm.
makes sense for me.
Yeah.
And that's basically, what it means to be, you know, a level one. Like you still require accommodations in some way.
Yeah.
If you say self-care, I say accommodations.
Mhm.
Because it's not a luxury necessarily. It is saving your mental wherewithal and allowing you to show up for yourself and your family. That's not a
Yeah.
luxury to me.
Yeah, and the reality is a lot of us have adapted over time without realizing it. And when you get a late diagnosis, you start looking back like, oh, and the air fryer is one. I love to cook, but it takes a lot of time, and it is a way that I can cook healthy and and not have to make a mess in my kitchen because I don't like having to clean it up
Correct.
after and all that. And so to me it's like, okay, this is how I've adapted. And I've done that throughout, my life, just one adaptation after another. So it's we're all doing that. We're all doing that in society, whatever is working for our time. But also, if you're a neurodivergent person or even if you're not diagnosed and if you look back on your life and you realize you really adapted these things over time, yeah, that's how that happens, right? We see something that's a struggle, so now we're going to make it easier, right? Hanging my clothes up is like, oh, that's my thing, but the closet is really far. And so, well, there's a shower curtain over my washer and dryer. And okay, there it is, right? Makes that easier. I keep adapting that over time to make it easier for myself because I just know that that's something used to be ironing back when ironing was a thing. I can't stand wrinkled clothes. And so it was always, oh, got to iron this. I don't have time. I don't want to iron. I grew out of that calms me. Like, no, it does not. It's another thing. So I take that away by hanging it up, So yeah, we've all adapted over time. We allow ourselves to do those things. And if we're not taking care of us, my mom did say one thing that always stuck with me. Take care of you because nobody is going to take care of you like you do. You are number one and you have to do that, right? Now, mind you, she taught me how to be a people pleaser, but that is something that I kept. And when it was necessary, I pulled it out of my little vault and said, okay, I'm going to do that now. So take care of me. And, I can't take care of anybody else if I'm not even taking care of me. I used to, but I just burn out a lot. So
yeah. And I think that's really like the message for the night is, for me, I guess the message is if it resonates in any way, figuring it out if you do have, ADHD, autism, neurodivergent, however you want to call it. Are you on the spectrum in any way? Because I think understanding it allows you to have some of that ankle biter anxiety go away. And you then don't carry that additional cognitive load of why can't I just?
mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Why can't I just can take space in the back of your head and just add to lowering that threshold when it doesn't have to. So I don't have that anymore. I feel like I am mainly my authentic self most of the time, but you can't be your authentic self all the time. It's not always pretty. So
yeah.
But learning who you are is a gift that you deserve to give yourself. And so that is my last thing for the evening. And we will see you next time on another episode of NeuroReal. How long? I feel like